Today in our 2018 Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk, we're going to take a look at and show you how to install the Demco tabless baseplate kit. Part number is DM9519308. Now here's what our baseplate's going to look like once we have it finally installed. See, we're going to have two pods, which are essentially going to come right out of our tow hook locations there. Now this is with the arms removed, and overall it gives a pretty nice clean look. We've got kind of a hammered finish to it. It's got a little bit of a texture. I kind of like that as compared to just the standard high gloss black. This is our safety chain connection point here. We're going to have one of those located on each side. And then of course here's the cap, which we can rotate and pull out, which allows us to place our removable arms in. Now something I like about this kit is that our removable arm places in and it rotates in position. Then we use this pin to hold it in place. Now it's held by the larger bolt here in the back, so it's not like we have to worry about just this pin holding the weight of our vehicle. But these are going to remain attached to your tow bar if you're especially using a Demco tow bar. So you really don't have the possibility of losing them. That's different than what we see with a lot of other base plates out there. They go in kind of the same style. They're going to click into position, but you have to keep them stored somewhere. You have to keep them safe. You have to know where they're at. In this case, it's going to be attached to our tow bar, which I really like. And to remove it, we're just going to take that pin out, give it a gentle rotate, pull it on out, and then we can easily cap this back up just by pushing that in, rotating until it clicks into position. Now as far as the installation process goes, with this being a Trailhawk model, all the base plates really go on in the same manner. We're not going to have a big difference in the way they look other than the finish. You can see there's a little bit of trimming required just to get down and around it kind of in this corner. And then for one of the bolts will be taken out just a little bit on this edge right here. It's really not going to be something you'll see. Now one thing to keep in mind, a base plate is just the first of several items you need for an appropriate flat tow setup. Now the installation process for a base plate is going to involve removing this front fascia area. We want to start in the top here. We're going to open the hood, and this little filler panel that's right here, we're going to remove this. It has 12 push pin fasteners in it, which basically look like this. It's going to be a circle shape, and then this little inside circle actually pushes in. So when you get in that little gap, you can use a screwdriver, trim panel tool. I'm just using a little pick here to kind of get it started. And then once we've got that center removed, if we just kind of gently pull on it, the rest of it will come. So we're going to do that for the 12 on the panel. We've got the one we just removed, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And if we come to the top, we're going to have 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now with those out of the way, it's basically going to lift straight up. We've got these bumpers for the hood. We just need to guide it around those on each side. We're going to set it aside and reinstall it later. Next thing we'll need to do is grab a 10mm socket and an extension. And we've got 3 bolts right in this area that we need to remove. 2 are going to be right here pretty close to each other. One's right here. This is where your fender and fascia meet. So we got that one. We got the one right below it right here. Then if we move a little bit closer to the inside of the car, right down here on this flat spot, we're going to have our third. These are going to be the same spot on both sides. Let's get those taken out. You can see they're all the same bolt, same length. Now we'll come into the fender well. This happens to be the driver's side. We can see the area here where this comes down. We've got a straight line that continues on to the fascia trim here. You can see right here we've got a bolt we want to take out. This has an 8mm head, and if we'll follow this down, it'll be hard for you to see, but there's going to be another one located right in here, and then right down here, one more. So let's get those taken out. Again, you'll need an 8mm socket. And once we have these 3 out, we want to head over to the passenger side and we'll do the same thing there. Now here on the bottom side, this is our front driver's side tire, bottom edge of our fascia. We've got an aluminum rivet right here. I'm going to use a 3/16 inch drill bit. and gently drill that out. You don't need a whole lot of pressure. You just want to let that bit work through that aluminum. If you push too hard, likely it's going to start spinning, and you'll have to get pliers to hold it. So get there, that'll come down. And on the back side, we've got the back of the rivet. Now we've got the skid plate here on the bottom we're going to take off. This one has 7 bolts. We're going to use a 13mm socket. I'm going to loosen these, not remove them completely. I'm just going to loosen these for now. The 3 across the front. Then we've got 4 here across the back, the same size we're going to take out. As we remove the last one, it's going to come down a little bit, but it'll rest on those front bolts since we left them in place. So we'll slide it down a little bit and then rearward towards it. Now those 3 that we left hanging, let's just take those the rest of the way out. Now we need to grab our 10mm socket again, and we're going to have 4 bolts right here to remove. We want to remove the ones that are going into the plastic fascia, not the black ones or gray ones that are going into the steel. Now if we pull back this plastic fender liner, right here between the edge of the fascia and the fender, we've got a bolt. It goes kind of up in that way. We're going to use a 10mm socket and remove it. It's a little bit tight, so generally you're going to have to use a small 1/4-inch drive ratchet. Now we can head over to the passenger side and we'll do the same thing there. Now it's time to get the fascia off the vehicle. As we do this, we need to check behind for any wiring connections and disconnect those. But essentially you're going to grab right on the inside edge of this trim strip and we're going to pull straight out. We'll release a couple clips when we do. Slowly work it, make sure those clips release. Going to keep going forward and we'll look for our wiring connectors here. You'll notice right here we got a connector, so we're going to press in on that black tab. We'll wiggle it to separate, and then there's this little Christmas tree fastener we want to pull out of there. All right, we'll just set this aside somewhere safe. Of course, we're going to put it back on later. Now we've got this bracket to remove here. It's going to have the square and then the cuts in it for kind of the crumple zone there. We've got 3 bolts, 1, 2, 3. Need a 15mm socket for those. And then you can see that little nut right there. You need a 10mm for that. Now let's head over to the passenger side and we'll do that same thing there. Now if you look right on the back of the tow hook, you see this shaft goes through this support. And then right back here there's going to be a large nut. And we need to get that nut off of there. We're not going to be reusing it. Really, it seems like the easiest way to get in here is going to be with a pair of pliers. It's pretty tight in there for any kind of a tool. And it's not on there that tightly. So just kind of get your pliers in there and start removing it. Now we're going to remove the 2 bolts here on the front of the tow hook. This is a 16mm. Now one of these we'll need to hang on to so we can reuse. Now just go to the driver's side. We're going to do the same thing there. Now just above where the tow hook went through, you'll see the 2 bolts, one here and one here. We're going to take those out. We're going to use a 15mm socket to do that. And then we need to take this lip off. You can see how this lip sticks up. We need to go right in that corner and we need to grind that down smooth all the way across on both sides. That's pretty much what we're going to take off there, all of this here on both sides. Now, of course, as you do this, you need to avoid making any contact with anything else. Like these are your coolant lines here. Do any damage to those, we're going to have issues. So just stay away from that. Just trim that out. Now I'm going to use a cutoff wheel. It'll help me remove the majority of the material. Once I have that done, then we'll grind it down. Now once we've got that ground down flush, you just want that just to be flush with that surface there. We're going to use some spray paint. You can see we've got a couple nicks here. We just want to paint that surface. This is going to help to ensure that it doesn't start rusting on the customer. Now we're going to grab the pod labeled driver. We're going to get it put up in place here. And we're going to return those 4 bolts, or 3 bolts rather, that we removed from that square portion that stuck out here, that little bracket. Now with the pod held in place, we're going to grab our Loctite here. We're going to put it on, and you'll want to do this on each of the bolts that you install into each pod. We're also going to replace the bolts that went up through the tow hook there. That'll connect the pod up to the bumper. Now we'll use one of our 10mm bolts. It's going to have the fine thread on it. We want to put on the fender washer. This is going to be slightly larger than the other washer in the kit, and a lock washer, and those are going to replace the 2 bottom bolts that we took out of the bumper there. See them there, just like that. All right, with our hardware in place, we're going to start snugging everything up. Then we're going to torque it to the specifications we'll find listed on the front of the instructions. Now we're going to grab our safety chain here, our safety cable. We want to go up and around the frame with it. It's kind of tight to see. Well, if we bring it up and poke it right up over the frame rail there, we'll be able to come in and get it right behind that washer fluid tank. We're going to pull that down. We put a quick link on the end of it here, and then we just attach that to the main body of the cable. So you see it's just going to lay in there like that. Close that up like that. We can pull all the slack out of it. And then we'll bring this down around to the front side here. And we've got our attachment point right there. That's really all there is to it. We'll leave that connected just like that. Now basically everything that we've done here on the driver's side, we're going to repeat that for the passenger. Now, as we said before, the base plate isn't the only component that you're going to need to get installed for a flat toe setup. So not only do we have our base plate in place, we've also got our wiring here. So as we have this hooked up behind our coach, we're able to get our signals on the back, like our brakes, our blinkers, our running lights, things like that. Now, when the fascia is off is a really good time to do this because you'll have more access where you're able to run your wires up, kind of keep them hidden and out of the way. Now we're going to test out the fit of our fascia. We may need to trim out in here. We may have to make a few modifications. So let's just ease it on there, see what we come up with. It looks like this lower edge here, we're going to have to trim some of this out to allow that to come down and around. Just verify that you've got it lined up where you'll want it before you start trimming, and make a couple marks there. All right, after we've trimmed it a few times to make sure we get everything the clearance that it needs to go on, at this point it's ready to get put back up into position here. Just going to guide it on easily. Now be sure to reconnect your wiring back here. And basically you're just going to reverse the process we used in removal. With everything back together, that completes our installation of the Demco tabless baseplate kit, part number DM9519308 on our 2018 Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk.